Welcome to the Savvy Leader Podcast. Real conversations about the grit, grace, and gratitude it takes to be the savvy leader you were always meant to be. Welcome back to the next episode of the Savvy Leader Podcast. Today, we are joined by special guest Kelly Kumler, owner of Kelly Ryann Co. And she has a wonderful story to share with us about transformation and change and how she found her niche building websites in Reno, Nevada, but also online. So I'm excited to hear her insights and all of the great advice that she has for all of us. So Kelly, thank you for being here and share with us a little bit about how you landed where you're at. I know it sounds like you had even a move somewhere in the middle of that, and how you landed what you're doing with your career now and how things are going.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and basically just yap for a bit. Yes, I own a brand and website design agency, and we also focus on SEO. But that was definitely not always the path. I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, but previously I was an elementary school teacher for 7 years. So I'm from the Bay Area and started my teaching journey there, and quickly realized the cost of living in the Bay Area was a lot. So my sister lived in Arizona, and I thought I'll take that trip and figure that out. And so became a teacher there. And of course, as fate has it, a year later, my husband was in Arizona for a work trip, and I met him, and the stars aligned. So I ended up moving a year after that up to Reno, Nevada, and have been here ever since. So yeah, it's been a not very straight and linear path, but we've fallen now into the entrepreneurship world.
I like it so much. I like that you just recognize and see that journey. I think sometimes we forget to look back on where we started and all the changes and all the shifts. And it's so fun sometimes to reflect about that. But you're in the personal or branding business brands and personal brands, I'm sure. That is such a hot topic. In addition to creating a website that complements that brand message. Share with us a little bit about how branding has changed over the last couple of years and what's the unique perspective that you add to that.
Yeah, well, I love that the way that you phrased that was like developing a brand and then a website that complements that brand, because it really does all start with your brand. And I do get a lot of clients that come like, oh, I'm ready for a new website. And I have to say, wait, let's talk about the brand part first. Do you have a really strong understanding of your brand's, identity, and not just a visual identity, but the personality behind it? And is it, if it's like a one-man show or one-woman show, is that personality going to be really closely related to yours? Or is it kind of an alter ego personality of yours? And I think that's one of the big changes over the last, few years within branding, is that it previously was maybe more visual focused. And now there's a lot more push to make it more of the, brand message and like what is in the meat of your brand.
Yes, so true. And also, I think really complicated. I feel like there's got to be some really real soul searching that goes into really identifying that message and that brand, because authenticity is also so top of mind nowadays. And as AI continues to infiltrate its way throughout our daily lives, it's just so much harder to tell the difference between AI and the authentic person, the real you. And then also, how easy it must be for people to want to fall into a trap of what they think their audience wants. How do you help people better define their offering that actually suits them instead of them just trying to cater to an audience?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely start with like, who is your ideal client and making sure that we are still speaking to that audience and to that client because that is how you're making money. But then also asking a lot of questions about them, how they want to be shown up or how they want, to be perceived by others and making sure that we're really like melding the two of those so that we do have this unique end product that is, something that's very unique to each client. I mean, I've worked with so many different photographers at this point, but still each photographer has a different perspective, a different superpower within their business. And we try and highlight that, for each of those businesses.
All right, now you touched on that superpower thing, and I think that's such a great and fun concept. So when you meet with someone, how do they need to know their superpower, or can you help them find that?
Yeah, do a little digging to help find that. So it's a lot of, I start with like a really extensive questionnaire, asking them a lot of questions. And I have a lot of people say to me, like, well, I don't know. I wasn't sure how to answer that. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the point. Like, let me get you to think about that a little bit more. And then they might be just throwing answers in there. But when I go through it, I am strategically looking for the things that they maybe don't realize is different about them. But I have worked with so many different clients at this point that I can point out, oh, you do that, and not most people don't do that, so that I can kind of pull that out.
Ah, that's so great. So you're intuitive as well. Do you feel like that needs to be a prerequisite with someone who's working with people in their brand message?
Probably. It's definitely not something, being that I was like a teacher before this, it's not like I had a formal marketing training. And so it is something I've done a lot of kind of self-teaching on and doing the research myself into that so that I know what I'm doing. But I also was a psychology major in college, and I feel like that has been so helpful, even if it's not directly correlated.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. I think that that's so interesting because what I was just thinking about is how in the world did you go from teaching to branding and then
Mhm.
then you toss in your degree in psychology and it kind of makes a little bit more sense how they can be kind of parallel to each
Mhm.
other. But tell us a little bit. I mean, how did you go from teaching to then working on websites and branding and all this tech?
Yeah, it's definitely, I know, not exactly like that makes sense as the next step. But I've always loved doing creative, hobbies, and I would just taught myself how to watercolor and would make little cards for my friends and things like that. And so I started a business actually in January of 2020. So that was, a rough time to start a business, particularly because this business was doing wedding stationery design. So right in the, weddings at that time was not the greatest, but it did teach me a lot of like, I loved kind of figuring out how to then make a lot of my art and illustrations digital. And then that really taught me then the like digital side of design and that I really liked working more digitally instead of in print. And that I liked working more with a client that's like a business owner than a bride. So when I was leaving teaching and trying to figure out what I was going to do next, it kind of just like all came together and made the most sense.
That's great. But I mean, have you met a couple of, brides within your branding industry too? Have you had some clients that either were a little more challenging or maybe even surprised you along the way?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would say, especially at the beginning when you're like trying to figure out who is my ideal client and who do I like working with, there are times that you realize, like, oh, this is how I want to run my business versus how maybe I'm running it now. And having to figure out what those boundaries look like and the types of people that you want to work with. But I've now been really fortunate, 4 years in that I definitely am attracting the type of clients that I really enjoy.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations, because that's a huge accomplishment to to
Thank
figure
you.
out how to attract the people that you want to work with. Because in my mind, when you were talking about that, I was thinking I could just envision some of your clients saying, but I don't want to work with those people.
Hmm.
I want to
Yep.
work with these people. And then you're saying, well, ideally, this is going, so as you're guiding them along, I think it's beautiful that you've now reached a point where you get to work with the people that ideally you want to work with and you enjoy working with them. It's got to make life so much more richer and fulfilling when you can help people that you connect with in that way.
Yeah, it's definitely there. I mean, to get to that point took turning some people down, which is terrifying. You're like, am I giving up this income by saying no? But I did have to do a few of those conversations of I don't think that we're going to be the best fit, and move on from it and just know that it was going to be the right choice no matter what. So.
Good for you. That does take a lot of inner strength. And our mutual friend brought up a great point in relation to that. She said, sometimes you can work with them for a little bit, but giving yourself a timeline on how long you're willing to spend time with them to determine whether or not it's a good fit or not a great fit. And then, of course, having some great referral partners in your back pocket that might be a better fit, I think eases that conversation a little bit. Is that been your experience, or is it really just one of those nail biters?
Yeah, I think that I wasn't having those tough conversations until I was at a point in my business that I knew more business would come. I think really like in that first year of business, I think it's important to kind of say yes to a lot of things and just take on as many different projects within different industries and across different types of businesses because it really gives you a feel for what you like. You don't really know what you actually like until you're doing it. And I think sometimes we go into business like, oh, these are the people I want to work with. But then if you haven't tried it all, you don't know for sure what is the thing that's going to like set your soul on fire.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it does evolve. I feel like it's a constant evolution for a long time. And recognizing those boundaries, though. So where do you start? Like when you start looking at things like that and you feel like you're getting to a place where you can be a little bit more discerning when it comes to the people that you work with, where do you start kind of drawing that line? How do you identify the best place to start?
I mean, I think goes right back into branding and making sure that once you've kind of like played around a little bit, then really diving into, okay, this is who my brand is and how I want to show up. And that already is going to bring in a lot more of the right people. But then at that point, if you've gotten to that point where you do have a better understanding of who your brand is, you probably also have a pretty good understanding of some of the red flags that you have seen in those initial calls or consultations to know, okay, I know how this is going to go if I let this continue. So I need to ask myself if I'm willing to put up with that or if it's better that I refer them to someone else.
Okay. And then another thing I was thinking about was, is there a point or what does it look like when you are meeting with someone that you want to work with and you're helping them is there ever a point where you have to help them shift into a type of persona that better matches their audience? And what does that look like? I mean, that seems like that would be tough.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, a recent client, she is a wedding content creator, which is like a newer, vendor within the wedding world. And she initially kind of had this idea of she wanted to show up very soft and romantic, and that is, very common in the wedding industry. And then we started diving into her personality a little bit more and what sets her apart. And it really is her kind of bubbly, like we called it her girly pop personality. And so we ended up changing the initial meeting. We had like two mood boards we were looking at. We ended up totally scrapping them and starting something new and coming out with this kind of like retro girls sleepover of the 90s kind of vibe. And so it was totally different than what she initially thought she wanted. But we felt like that one represented her so much better and also was speaking to her clients. She mostly was working with brides. And so really having that connection to them and what they were looking for.
Smart. That was so smart. And I can totally relate. And, when it comes to like trying to put something together, it feels like when we're trying too hard, we kind of overshoot the mark and then we're
Mhm.
doing too much. It makes it too busy. And the message gets lost again. And when you
Mhm.
don't have a clear message, you don't have a clear anything, and you're never going to reach the right people. Um, it's such a huge struggle, and I don't think it gets enough attention in this marketing world. And you're right that the content creators for weddings, that is such a new and fun niche to be in right now. I think it's so great. Are there other new up and coming niches that you can see kind of while you're working with clients and new people these days?
It's hard to say if it's just like my algorithm giving me new, new industries that I'm seeing online, or if there's actually new pieces. But I definitely see a lot more like holistic wellness, and things within that industry. The content creators is like definitely one of the biggest ones. I do work a lot within the wedding industry, and so that has popped up just over the last couple of years. So that's been fun to take a look at. And then even some within like the online business space, I've seen some community. What is the title? Like they're in charge of kind of your own community if you
Like
have
business development?
it's more like if I had a membership and then
Hmm.
they would be in charge of the community within that membership and like keeping it positive and contributing to each other and things like that.
Interesting. That's something I
Yeah.
haven't yet heard of. I'm gonna have to look into that. Most definitely. Okay. So share a little bit about some of your guiding principles and the values that you bring to the table that have carried you through even your teaching career and now into this digital world.
Yeah, well, probably my biggest value within my business now, and it probably has been a value always, is strategy first. So really always trying, I'm a very logical person for being someone in the creative field. I would say that I am more of like a logical brain. So I really like to think things through before just, spitting things out, which in my business now looks like, oh, I'm not going to just put up like a pretty logo because it's pretty. I need to make sure there's some strategy behind that brand, or same thing for a website. And aside from that, always been a learner. So always want to keep learning more. And obviously that was a big one in teaching. But then within business, there's things are constantly changing in running a business, marketing platforms and even, CRMs and the best practices of this or that, and like making sure that we're staying on top of learning those things so that we can continue to serve our clients in the best way.
So great. And I mean, and I find it interesting that the parallels that you have with that between, in the span of your career and how you shifted from two things that are so different. But then with that, how are you balancing your life? You've got clients that are coming at you and you've got to, better discern who you want to work with and keep those boundaries. But how do you kind of balance your work and life and all of that while you're working at home? Because you're at home all the time. So there's definitely a fine line between working 16 hours a day and having a little bit better balance.
Yeah. So one of the big things for me is that I didn't start my business until I was already a mom. And I do get a lot of business owners that say like, how do you do it? I don't have kids yet, but I want to, but I don't know how I'm going to stop working these long hours. And I'm like, well, that was never a option for me. I didn't start my business until my first son was a year and I was pregnant with the next. So I only had, I knew I had X amount of time to be building a business. And I think it really helped me set norms and expectations. And yes, I maybe could have grown faster if I could have worked longer hours or chose to. But the reason I started my business was so that I did have the flexibility to be a present mom. And I think that that really helped me just set the tone for like what my own expectations are within work and life.
That's so great. And especially in the hustle culture. And then I know now it's almost, because it starts to be this piece of this kind of it comes in the form of some self-pride or something when you work a 13-hour day,
Mhm.
or you work until 9 o'clock at night, or, it's that grind and that constant push. And especially when you have clients coming at you because they're
Mhm.
probably, working all day themselves. And so connecting with you might end up being an after hours conversation. That's a tough juggle when it comes to family and kids, especially when you've got little ones that really need you at specific times of the day. Have
Mhm.
you found that your clients have been receptive to your boundaries, or have you had any challenges with that?
No, I think they're generally pretty receptive. I do typically work with women. And so I think that they are a little more understanding of just this work-life balance, even if they aren't mothers themselves. A lot of them do just understand that that is kind of part of the job. We do have childcare for our kids. There were times at the beginning of my business when we didn't, and times when we were part-time, and we've had all different kind of iterations of that. But so I'm not just doing it all. I will make sure that I say that we do hire help. Um, but yeah, I would say mostly I've had clients that have been really understanding. And if I have had anyone that hasn't been understanding, it's never really like gotten under my skin to bother me. So it hasn't actually affected my mood on it.
Awesome. And well, and again, you're choosing clients that are going to be the kind of people that'll be receptive to your boundaries and the things that are important to you, and then that balance. So I think
Mhm.
that's great. And thanks for calling out the fact that you need help. We all need help. We all need support, whether it be from our significant other, our family, our friends, or other, if we're looking outside of the home and outside of our circle to, hire help. We all need it in some way, shape, or form. So I think that that is so important to acknowledge it, and it's okay to do that.
Mhm.
With that, what's the most significant challenge you feel like you faced during this time?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it probably would go down to just the navigating the responsibilities. Sometimes that is the financial responsibilities of, oh my gosh, do I have more clients coming in soon? I'm looking for that income. And sometimes it is the time constraints of, well, I booked too much, I put too much on my plate, and now I'm trying to figure it all out and get everything in by a deadline. But that's just part of the learning process of like what you can manage and handle and um, the ebb and flow of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so there's a couple other things that come along with that. There's, of course, the burnout piece of it, but we kind of touched on enlisting your help, or enlisting some help and support. How about staying focused when you're working from home? You have any tips on staying focused and maintaining a productivity level that's consistent with the type of sales and work that you want to bring in?
Yeah, that is a hard one. And I would say I'm a pretty like focused person, but it is still, oh gosh, there's dishes in the sink. Oh, I need to change out that load of laundry, things like that, particularly with that working from home piece. But for me, I would say two things is one, I know I'm more productive in the morning. Once I go take my lunch break, it's really hard for me to get back into any deep work. I might be like, oh, I'll get to that website design after lunch. And I know now like that's not going to happen. I need to do the like heavy work in the morning hours. And then the afternoon work can be more of the like responding to emails, quick things that don't require as much designated focus time. And the other thing is the like Pomodoro sprints, where I think there's official times of like 45 minutes on, 10 minutes off, or something like that. But I usually do like 30 minutes of focused work and then like a 5 minute break. Just literally could be getting up to go grab a snack, getting up to fill up my coffee, or I'll even set a timer. Okay, I have 5 minutes to load this dishwasher so that that's out of my brain. And I heard about Pomodoro for so long, and I was always kind of like, why would that work over anything else? But once I gave it a try, it really does help.
Does it really? Because I've looked at it too. And for myself, I've found that like there's days where I'll work, just that super long marathon day and I get so much accomplished and I kind of look forward to having that. At the same time, I do feel like you're so right. Like, you've got to recognize your productivity times. And once you get past that optimum hour, then you're going to fall prey to some of those distractions. And I
Mhm.
do the same thing. And, so I've been thinking about that Pomodoro thing. I'll have to look into that further. Because I just don't know. But you said it. So you set yourself a timer and then you do it, damn it. Like when it comes up, you just go, okay, I got to stop whatever I'm doing. And then you go.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes it's just a good reminder. You like look at a task and you're like, this is going to take me forever. And then you like set a timer for 30 minutes and realize, oh, actually, I just got that done within that amount of time.
Wow. And what a great acknowledgement there too, because I think doing time studies for ourselves and helping us
Mhm.
understand how much time we spend on things, just kind of a side benefit of doing work that way. You get to kind of keep track of actually how long it takes you. So that in turn would come into play when you're looking at maybe pricing your services, right? Because
Mhm.
you have a better idea of actually how long it takes because some of us are like, that'll just take me a few minutes and it ends up taking like an hour. So
Right.
I think that's another great benefit to that. Ooh, one more reason why I'll have to look into that.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay, so now you've transitioned from two very different worlds, and I'm curious if you've had any influences along the way. Have you got any key supporters in your world or things that have really influenced your sheer drive?
Yeah, I would say it's really a lot of my own clients have been really influential through my business journey, because they are also business owners and like just it's so fun to work with different people and see how they run their business and oh, every time kind of gives me a little bit of like, oh, I didn't think of doing that. Maybe I should try this thing or like I've picked up a lot of things for how to run my own business from clients I've worked with or even contractors I've hired to help with things within my business. And seeing, oh, okay, that's how they onboarded me. I actually really liked that experience. Maybe I should try that. Um, so those have been always, very influential. I also am in a online community called The Doers, and the owner of the Doers. Her name's Ashley Pollard, and she's been a really big influence in, just how like feeling comfortable and running your business. And a lot of what she offers is, specifically to women and like so many things that we maybe went into business thinking, I don't know, but can I do that? Am I capable of running my business to that extent? And kind of showing that, yes, you can do that.
That's awesome. And I love hearing about online communities because they're kind of hard to find, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I definitely looked around for a few, and I've now been in the Doers for over a year,
Okay.
and it's been one that has really stuck with me. So,
Okay. I'm gonna have to check that out too. Thank you for that.
yeah.
Um, okay, so talk us through just kind of give us an idea of what it's like to go through maybe a consultation with you. So where does it all begin? You mentioned you have kind of an extensive questionnaire. Do you meet people on Zoom? And talk us through a little bit of an average, session with a new client.
Yeah, so I do run my business online, even though I sometimes work with clients that are local to me. We still do all of the meeting online. It's just like now this is my workplace. So it's so much easier for me to kind of have everything ready to go that way. But yeah, once a client starts with me, I send them a questionnaire that's depending on what project they're going for, if we're doing a brand and a website, or are we diving just into SEO? They'll get questions specific to that project. And then before we get on a call, I go through all of that and build our strategy first. So I'm really building out all of the pieces of your brand strategy. I'm doing competitor research, which is one of my favorite things to look at. What are your competitors doing? And developing as much of that strategy as I can. And then we meet together, we go over all of it, and I get your input as we're going through it. So, oh, does that sound right? Does this feel like you? And a lot of times it is the clients going, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I feel. And I didn't know how to say it or put it into words. Um, so we go through all that. And at the end of it is when we look at some, visual mood boards to see like what feels more aligned with the direction that you're going with. And I do typically give a couple of options like, well, if you want to lean more into this side of the personality, let's do this. Or if you want to lean more this way, let's try this. And so that's always a really fun part too. I think fun for the clients because they can kind of see how their brand is going to come into fruition. And so, yeah, we kind of mix up the mood board together from there and land on our final option. And that really guides the rest of the creative process.
That's so great. Now, do you have like mood board templates that you pull from, or is it all just organic during your kind of discoveries?
I typically have clients, I set up a Pinterest board. And so before that call, have them
Mm.
pin anything that they like on there. And I do really try and
Mm.
encourage, not just sure if you see a font you like or a logo you like or colors, go ahead and pin those, but also pin other things, other like pictures or anything else that feels aligned to your vision. And so we could kind of piece all of that together and pull from that the overall, mood and vibe that we're going for.
Awesome. I think that's fantastic. What a great behind the scenes kind of scoop to help people understand what it's like to move through the process of this branding message and the image that they're creating for themselves. Along with that, though, what excites you most about what's happening within your industry right now? I mean, branding is so, so important, and I feel like it's getting a lot more attention.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a lot more people taking branding seriously. And maybe it's just also where I'm at in my business, is that I don't typically work with brand new business owners, because I get a lot more people coming to me that are ready to really dive into, the market research behind their industry and fueling their brand and putting, investing more into what they want and how they want to show up. And, but like I said, with like that first year of business, you should be kind of testing things out. And I actually don't recommend that new business owners invest in professional branding because I think you need a little bit of time to figure out who you are, who you want to work with, and how you want to show up.
That is some killer advice.
You.
Well, because I mean, on one hand, it's like you feel like you should get out of the gates who you want to be, but
Mhm.
it's what you're saying is it's okay to allow yourself to evolve a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, if you have the budget to do it and then know you're probably going to do it again in a year, go for
Mm.
it. But I think that, a good brand should last you at least 3 to 5 years. And then you can reevaluate, okay, is this still showing up how, I want to show up? But if you are, when you're just starting out, it just doesn't really make sense to determine and like claim this is exactly who I am and what my business does. Because I think that the chances of that changing are pretty high.
Mm. Probably because you've seen it firsthand.
Yes. Yes.
Being in your business for 4 years, it means you've probably seen a cycle or two of clients that you've worked with come around more than once and kind of
Yeah.
interesting. That's really, really interesting. And yeah, almost kind of comforting to know that, it's okay to work through this and fine tune yourself and your offerings while you evolve because it
Hmm.
is kind of an evolution within yourself and your business because you don't know what you don't know until
Hmm.
you know.
Yep. And I think there's so much. anyone in the online business space knows that all over social media is like, you need this marketing thing, you need this, you need this. And yes, I do think that businesses need a strong brand, but give yourself the time to, kind of explore that before you really invest in it.
Okay. So smart. All right. What is your long-term vision for yourself and your company? I mean, I know that, 4 years isn't super long, but do you see yourself continuing, status quo, or do you have some other bigger visions or goals in your future?
Yeah, I actually just hired a creative assistant. So I'm really excited about that because it has been just me for a long time. So I'm excited to grow my team and ideally, I'd love to have a few people on my team that are really good at what they do and, finding what are my strengths and where are my weaknesses and finding people that can kind of complement and kind of complete our little circle. And also the idea of just being able to employ and pay women well is something I would really, like to be a part of. So that is the vision kind of internally, but on the outside, really trying to, as that team grows, I don't plan on it being some massive agency ever, but anytime that you add to a team, I want to make sure that we're still providing the best service to our clients, and still feeling like you get that personal touch.
I love it. I think that sounds so perfect and it fits you, it seems, to a T.
Thank you.
Um, you've given so much advice, but do you have one other piece of advice you'd like to offer any young or new aspiring leaders or business owners out there?
Yeah, I would say just know that the ups and downs are inevitable, and if you can write it out, just keep writing it out. It will get better.
Yeah, when you feel stuck in the icky middle.
Mhm. Yeah, that was like year two for me. Was like, oh
Ugh.
my goodness, is this working? What am I
Mm.
doing? And came out on the other side feeling a whole lot better.
Oh, good. And well, I'm so glad to hear, and I'm so grateful to meet you. And I'm certain that so many others will want to get to know you and discover all that you have to offer. Where can people find you, Kelly?
I am on Instagram far too much. And my Instagram handle is at Kelly Ryan with two N's Co. So Kelly Ryan Co. And then my website is kellyryan.com.
Awesome. And is there on your website people can book maybe a discovery call or a consultation with you if they were so inclined?
Yep. Yeah. If you go up to the contact page, you can fill out information from there, or of course, send me a message on Instagram and I'm happy to chat through there as well.
Very good. Do you have any events or promotions that we can highlight for you or anything coming up that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, this year, one of my big goals for this year, which will be launching in March,
Hmm.
is a website template shop. So I have that coming for you if you are looking for something that's a little more budget friendly and not ready to make a big investment into, a custom website. This is, my solution to try and, offer that and also offer some access to me to help you with those templates so you're not just building it blind.
That's so great. I love it. I think that
You.
that is sounds like the path of least resistance and getting to you and kind of taking in all of your incredible wisdom and everything you have to offer. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Kelly. It was so great to have you.
Thank you.
Hearing your story and understanding, the process of building that brand and then how it ties in with your website and then SEO, that's a whole nother animal itself. So I applaud you for tackling that beast.
Thank you.
But I hope that people will reach out to you soon because they don't know what they don't know until they find you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Leader podcast. Be sure to check out the description for any relevant links and additional details that we might have shared throughout this week's episode. And if you're looking to continue this conversation, we'd love to see you over at the Savvy Leaders Lounge on Substack or the Savvy Living Network for additional insights. That's savvylivingnetwork.com. We'll see you there.